My name's Murray Ballard, and I'm a photographer based in Brighton. I studied photography at Brighton University, graduating in 2007. Since then, I've been working as an assistant to the photographer Mark Power, and continuing my own projects, the occasional commission, and some smaller commercial jobs. I became interested in photography whilst I was doing my foundation in art and design at City College in Brighton. Before that, prior to the foundation, I'd only really used photography as a sort of a research tool, I suppose. I did A-level art, and I would go out and photograph tree bark or trees and leaves and that kind of thing to stick in my sketchbook to do my research. Photography was never the end product. And then I enrolled on an art foundation, and I was making lots of short films. That was what was really exciting me at the time. I started to get frustrated at making these short films because back then we were using pretty crappy DV cameras, and they just the aesthetic just looks so terrible. I mean, what you can do on a camera now is so superior to back in on a basic camera what you can do back in 2002. 2001, 2002, and so you'd have this idea in your head of what you wanted this thing to look like, and then you'd go out and shoot it, and it would just be incredibly disappointing. I'd take some still photographs, and they always just looked better. I always feel a bit bad. It was such an aesthetic thing, I suppose, the attraction to photography. But also it was hard to make films. I was kind of very ambitious, as you very often are when you're a student. You think you have to you write a script and you get people acting out scenes, and you have to source locations and props, and I was trying to do all this on a shoestring budget, and it never looked very good, and it was a lot of work. So the Cryonics work, I started when I was a student at Brighton. Just so that you know, Cryonics is the process of freezing a dead person or animal with the intention of one day bringing them back to life when technology has evolved to that point. But yes, I started it as a student when I was in my second year, and I didn't just wake up one day and think, right, today I'm going to do a project about cryonics. It evolved out of another piece of work I was doing. A group of us were asked to respond to an extract from Anne Michael's book, Fugitive Pieces. And it's a very poetic text, and it deals with, it's about a young boy running away from the Nazis. His parents have been taken off, probably to a concentration camp, and it's sort of my recollection says I have it 100% right, but he's sort of thinking about and imagining what it might be like to die, and I found this really difficult. I was getting interested in documentary work, and I thought, how am I supposed to make pictures about this subject in Brighton, by the seaside, in springtime? It just seemed really difficult to do anything meaningful or do what I wanted to do. But what it got me doing is rereading some books, some other essays I'd read about photography and its relationship with death. And how Susan Sontag, for instance, has written about this relationship where with photography you have this strange thing where you're preserving something, you're preserving time. So it kind of has this sort of lifespan. And I sort of wanted to do a project about photography and this way that it can preserve something. It's expensive work to make. Most of the work involves travelling to America or Russia, so that mounts up. If you go away and take 200 sheets, that really mounts up. So it's actually, the reason why it's taken so long is a practical thing, but also, one of the things one of the frustrations with the project early on, from a photographer's point of view, was that the visual landscape, if you want to describe it as that, the actual amount of things to photograph is really small. This is a small community of 2,000 people, and there's a centre in Arizona. There's another centre or facility in Detroit, Michigan, and another one just outside Moscow in Russia, and then there's some members in the UK, and that's about it. It's a really small subject visually, so in order to make an interesting project about it, time is a important factor, because obviously things are changing, new people are signing up, and so the longer I work on the project, the more possibilities there are. What very often happens as a photographer is you get slightly pigeonholed. So I've kind of maybe gaining some small reputation for being able to photograph science, or be able to deal with those subjects, or technology. So, I've done a project about the genetic modification of crop plants, and that obviously follows on from the Cryonics work in some way. So, it's not so much that I'm interested in man's impact on nature. I'm more interested in science and technology and how they're changing people's lives, I guess.